Hey everybody, welcome to our premiere live signing. This is the second one I've done, and the last one was so awesome that I wanted to bring my friend Dave Rubin here to help host this one. We're not sitting next to each other, as you can tell, but we are together in spirit. So, hey Dave, thank you so much for hosting this live signing with me.
Congressman, it's good to be with you. I just had you on my show. I think I'm going to do your show later. And we've all been reduced to this. This is it. We're just, monkeys sitting at computers. That's it. This is the future.
Oh, man, it's just amazing to think of like how much this changes office life or media life, as everybody realizes how much they can just do without actually leaving their house. But I do think that there's going to be this need for actual human connection that will overcome that initial reluctance.
Yeah, you must be kind of digging staying at home though, instead of having to go to DC all the time. What's your normal split between Houston and DC?
Um, like, oh God, it usually goes like this. So when we're in session on a given week, and that's usually about 3 weeks out of a month, generally speaking, that can change, but generally speaking, 3 weeks out of a month. And it's like Monday to Thursday. So we either fly in for votes on a Monday evening or a Tuesday evening. So it's either Monday through Thursday or Tuesday through Friday. The rest of the time, in theory, I'm back home in Houston. In reality, all of different things pick up and come up, and I'm traveling a lot. So I definitely am kind of happy to just be home for like a long period of time. Like this is the first time my wife and I have kind of bought some new furniture. Just like put any time at all into we just live in an apartment, but
Yeah.
which makes sense because I mean we travel so much that having a house is just difficult. But yeah, it's a constant back and forth.
Yeah. Well, with the busy schedule, you somehow pulled it off. You wrote a book in the midst of this whole thing, Fortitude. I've got it right here. And
Yeah.
should we tell the people what we're doing today?
Yes, you've got a bunch of questions that a bunch of Premier live signing members, I believe, put into the system, and I'm going to answer those questions. I have not seen the questions as of yet. Only you have access to those questions, and you'll be asking them to me. And we're just going to have a good time. I guess when you buy books while you're watching this, as you buy books, you get a signed book plate along with that book. And it's okay. I just want to be, you always have to put this out because some people are expecting the actual book to be signed.
Yeah, it is a
I
book
can't,
plate
it
that
is
you
a
can
plate.
affix to the book.
Right. Because we couldn't possibly logistically get all those books signed. And then we just couldn't do it. But you will get, I swear to you, I am actually signing them. That I promise you. I am actually signing them. It's basically a sticker you put on the book, and it's super cool. So that's the reason to buy them right now.
Yeah, so it's a live signing. So for anyone watching this on Facebook right now, as they're doing it, you can be signing. You've got book plates with you right now. You're saying you didn't want to have 100,000 copies of your book just sitting in your apartment? You don't have room for that kind of thing?
I almost do. I have some, but yeah, no way. God, it
Not,
wouldn't be
not
nice if
quite.
we said 100,000 right now, though.
That would be pretty sweet. So I did a quick glance of these questions, and I asked you right before we turned this thing on if you had even seen these, and you haven't seen them. And
Yeah.
before I was thinking that that's actually part of, I think, the new magic of being a politician, the fact that you're willing to sit down and answer questions on the fly. And, I did a quick glance, but I don't really know what's in here, but you're willing to just see what happens. And that's very different than maybe politics, say 10 years ago.
Yeah,
Or 3 years ago.
yeah, that's true. It's a new normal, and that's still how a lot of politicians operate. And we've got to break out of that. I think people are looking for politicians to be a little bit more accessible and a little bit more genuine when they answer questions. And in order to be able to do that, you do have to know what you're talking about. You do have to be ready for all questions. And I've been doing this for so long now, and so long only means a couple of years. That's not a lot of time compared to a lot of politicians. But it's hard to surprise me at this point. It's unlikely that you will. But also, if you do, just say you don't know. Just say you don't know. I'll get back to you with an answer on that because I really don't know, and I don't want to give you some made up answer. It's not that hard.
As you know, I did moderate the Q&A for all of Jordan Peterson's tour, and we would do it just like this, where people in the audience would submit something, I'd look on the iPad, and then I'd mix mine in. Now, I was known to throw one in there every now and again to kind of wake him up and make sure everything's okay, keep you on your toes. Good. So you may have to watch out here.
I like it.
All right, you ready to roll?
Let's do this.
Okay. I'm going to just do these in absolutely no order. This is Paul from Oklahoma. He asks, what has been your biggest lesson learned during your first term in Congress?
Lesson learned. Oh, I don't know if there's a big one specifically. There's probably lots of lessons. I mean, I think that the most mechanical thing you have to learn is simply how to build that sphere of influence internally. So there's two separate tracks. There's the external sphere of influence and the internal sphere of influence. External is social media, your media presence. You know, how many constituents and people are you reaching? What's your outside influence? But there's inside influence too, and that's a matter of friendships. Okay, that's a matter of like getting to know other members and not being a jerk and not getting a big head just because you got a big social media following. And so like AOC falls into this trap, in my opinion. She makes enemies with some of her colleagues on the Democrat side, uh, just by being a bull in a china shop. And I try not to do that, and I hope nobody thinks of me that way. Um, because you have to make friends. You got to learn from people who've been around a long time. You got to have a sense of humility, and that's really important. I'd say that's a pretty good lesson. I could probably keep going, but
That seems like a lesson. In one sentence, this is Ryan from Houston, so he's a constituent. You really got to get this one right. In one sentence, what is the description you hope people use when they speak about your impact as a politician after you retire?
Jeez, it's a deep one. It's a good
That's deep.
question.
One sentence. He's talking about your retirement already. He is a
Yeah.
constituent. There's a lot there.
Um, you know, I think it might be very simple that I objectively made America a better place for freedom loving, tough Americans.
I'll go with
And
that. That works.
that's very simple.
This is important. Boxers or briefs?
And boxers. I mean, boxer briefs. Really, it's kind of both. Yeah.
For the record, Congressman, I threw that in myself. That's one of the mix-up ones, keeping you on your toes. This is a good one in light of everything going on. Are you optimistic about the future of America? And that is from Dante in Ohio.
Yeah, I'm always optimistic. I of course worry. I'm in politics. I'm in the midst of it all the time. I see what policies my opponents want to put into place, and I see how detrimental they are. I worry that that's getting worse. I worry that we are becoming a culture that is more and more inclined to ask for things and ask what government can do for us instead of asking what we can do for our country. And we're forgetting that old saying from JFK. It's such an important. I know it seems trite. It seems like a cliche, but it's not. It's really important, and I worry that we're forgetting that. And I see a lot of indications of that. It's one of the reasons I wrote this book. I mean, this book, the theme of this book is really much intertwined with personal responsibility, and that's important on a spiritual level, a moral level, and a practical level. Why spiritual and moral? Because it empowers us. If we're told that we don't control our own life, then that removes agency from us.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of Jordan Peterson, I quote some of his writing from 12 Rules for Life, because he makes this point pretty often as well. So that's a moral reasoning for why it's important to have personal responsibility. On a practical level, we have to encourage personal responsibility because, just practically speaking, if you're not personally responsible, by definition, you're waiting for somebody else to be responsible for you. And you have to ask government to force somebody else to be responsible for you. That's just a practical truth, and that's not sustainable. And the reason I'm a conservative is because the values that I put forth, economic, political, and cultural, these are sustainable virtues, sustainable principles. So as long as those principles are maintained, I have a lot of optimism for the country, because our country can get through anything. We have I think an inherently freedom-loving and tough-minded people, and we can't chip away at that spirit with the wrong principles. And so I'm optimistic, but I'm still worried. I went off a long track of things just from a very simple question.
You did a lot there, but you know what's kind of interesting about what you said, really at the front end of that, which is you're a conservative, and yet the guy you quoted there was a liberal Democrat president. And that really
Yeah.
shows you those words, ask not what
Yeah.
your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country, that have nothing to do with the Democrats of 2020. It has far more to do, obviously, with a modern conservative.
Yeah, I mean, there's whole books written about JFK arguing that he's really a modern day conservative. I'm sure there's still some things that he would have said that would make him clearly a Democrat, even by today's standards. But for the most part, the Democrat Party has shifted wildly. I think that's truer than ever. When people ask about polarization in politics, and so the casual response is, oh, okay, both sides. Both sides. It's polarized. Both sides. Well, not so much. I think there's two ways to measure polarization. One is how much do we compromise? And I think the data based on voting records would show that maybe it is both sides. Okay, like there's a less willingness to compromise over time. You've seen those voting records kind of move to the ends, like the red and the blue dots. If you ever seen that
Yeah.
YouTube video, that's an indication of voting records, not necessarily how the people are thinking. The way to understand the polarization as respect to how have actual thoughts and policies changed, well, that's more of an analysis of looking at what policies have changed. I don't see really any indication that Republicans have changed much in the last 30 years. We're conservatives, we hold by certain principles. We might have new ideas that are still informed by those principles, but for the most part, it's basically the same stuff. The Democrat Party is wildly different. I mean, wildly different. And that's just in the last 5 years. That's like Obama to now, so let alone Obama since JFK.
Yeah.
So I think that's objectively true. I could name a ton of examples, but I'm sure people
No,
have more questions.
yeah, there's a lot there. Well, even just in the last couple of days when Obama dropped that video backing Biden, and it's like you
Mhm.
watch the video and it's sort of like Obama, like he's almost irrelevant for these guys now in a weird way. So
Yeah.
it shows you how fast things change.
Well,
Uh,
in my book, I reference Obama twice in my book because I want this book to be readable to liberals. I really do, and I reference him like in a positive way twice in my book. And I point out that he was unfairly criticized for simply talking about woke progressivism,
mhm.
and woke activism, and that and a journalist at the New York Times like tore him apart for it. And it's ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. This is from Ashley in Colorado. She said, "You and I were both born in 1984, making us both millennials. What would you say to those who bash our generation?" That's a good one.
Yeah, no, it is, and I wonder if I'm guilty of it sometimes too. But it depends on what they're bashing us for, right? I mean, it depends on what the criticism is. Uh, so, what do we mostly get criticized for? We get criticized as entitled, and one thing I notice, and I often ask myself if this is true or whether it's just an unfair criticism, is that millennials are, they think we tend to think that we deserve more responsibility and more power than we really do. Like we seem less willing to kind of work our way up from the very bottom, and I had this long conversation with Jocko about this, because he's an actual business owner, but well, I'm gonna guess why I hire millennials too. So, and I can say that, but the his take on it was, I think, correct, and this is probably the right take. It's like good. Good. I'm glad you think you should be the CEO. I mean, you're not, but I'm glad that at least you're motivated. So that's a good thing. The bad thing is the lack of humility that's
Mhm.
associated with that. So as millennials, we've grown up with this like digital age. And if she's 1984 and I'm 1984, we're kind of these elder millennials who grew up in analog, but then like came to adulthood in the digital age. And I love that. I feel like that gives us balance. I think that makes us pretty different from somebody in their late 20s who's a millennial who really didn't have the analog age. Um, Nevertheless, it gives you a false sense of knowledge because you've always had access to all these things, and maybe a little less humility. So maybe that's a reasonable uh, critique of the millennial generation. But we have some righteous complaints, like like our housing is too expensive and our healthcare is too expensive, and that's relative to our parents. Okay, our education is more expensive relative to our parents. Those three things are those are big deals. Those are big deals. The problem with millennials, the real critique against millennials is that they are misidentifying why those things are the way they are and
Mm-hmm.
why they're unfair. They're misidentifying why housing is the way it is. They're misidentifying why healthcare is so expensive, or education is so expensive. Never forget one of my early debates in the campaigns at a and we did it. It was hosted at a university. The president of the university was there, and the student gets up and says, "You know, I'm 25, I've got student debt. What are you going to do about my student debt?" And I'm like, "I don't, nothing. Like, ask him. He's the one charging you more money than you think you should be paying." You know, and like it's, you know, it's not nothing, by the way. I've done a whole podcast on student debt. Like, there's actually a ton of mechanisms if you really are struggling to get your student debt paid off more easily. But the point is that there's this deliberate misidentification of where the problem exists and how to solve it. That's legitimate critique, because I tell you what, millennials aren't voting for conservative Republicans. So I would critique that, and I would say,
Right.
if you guys care about these things, you're actually voting the wrong way. If you're voting for a party that wants to tax you more and directly transfer that money to people 65 and older, you know, like, guys, like
Yeah.
that is literally Social Security 2100. It's a bill that is widely pushed by Democrats right now, and I am not exaggerating that. Like, come on, like, my generation does have to wake up in some areas.
Yeah. Well, the hope is, I guess they're saying now that the Zoomers, which come after you guys, the millennials, are actually going to be the most conservative generation in decades. And what got lost in this between the millennials and the baby boomers, I'm only 6 years older than you, but I'm Gen X, and I
Yeah.
don't know what happened to us. We're supposed to be in charge right now, and those boomers are they're living long lives. This is Teresa, also in Houston. She says, "We support you with our prayers and money. What else can we do to help you make a difference in America?"
Well, at this very moment, I want you to call the Democrat congressional members' offices and tell them that we need to put more money into the Paycheck Protection Program. Our small businesses are suffering right now. I mean, I'm just giving you a very practical, this is what you can do right now. Other than that, you know, just spread the word. I try to put out information. I try to make my social media informative. It's not just entertaining. It's informative. Share it. And you know, if you're asking that question, she probably already does. But it's just more and more and more. You know, we've got to get the word out. We've got to help people understand where we're coming from as conservatives. And you know, that's what this book is about. It's not really about conservatism, but it's about a cultural movement that I think we need, and I think liberals and conservatives could agree on it.
Yeah, one of the I mentioned this to you when I interviewed you the other day, but just yesterday, actually, you put out a Twitter thread because the Washington Post journalist, whatever you want to call her, put out this thing about Trump's killing millions of people and intentionally taking down the economy. And you just laid out like fact after fact after fact with dates and numbers and all this stuff on like what's really going on here. And I was like, that's how this game is supposed to be played. You don't try to destroy her, but you actually do take down the argument. And I think people appreciate that. Oh,
I
this is
want to
good.
point
This
out
is,
that your response to that tweet almost got more likes than a lot of those tweets.
well, I wanted to be very clear that it's a woman named Jen Rubin, Rubin, and I am in no way related. Every time this woman tweets, I don't even follow her, but she gets stuck in my feed because everyone's always owning her. And I always feel that I have to put it out there that I am in no way related to this woman.
Well, I wasn't even thinking about it until now. Like, now I really wonder, maybe you guys are related. I don't know. I don't
Look,
know.
listen, we all have deep family secrets, you know. All right, this is Darby in Lebanon, Pennsylvania. What aspect of your military career do you miss the most and the least?
I miss like almost all of it the most. I really loved my military career. I fought leaving. I left kicking and screaming. I just especially love the SEAL teams. I mean, listen, you have to understand what a life is like. It's hard, but as I talk about in this book constantly, there is true value, moral value, spiritual value, practical value, um, to doing hard things and to living a tough life. And the SEAL teams is that tough life. We work hard, we play hard. You know, I lived in San Diego, California for 10 years. That's not a bad place to live. It is, for all the complaints people and especially conservatives talk about in California, understand that is mostly Los Angeles and San Francisco. Okay. San Diego that's a nice place. All right. I think most of us could agree on it. So that
It
was
ain't
your
bad.
life. Yeah, that's it. That's the life there. The people are amazing. Everybody's always giving 110% to what they're doing. There's a true mission there, and I get to do fun things like shoot guns, blow things up, and jump out of airplanes. And I still try to do those things as much as possible in my private life. But I just miss the people. I miss deploying. Uh, you know, this is worth maybe touching on because I was fighting this battle mostly against conservatives, which is this notion that there's some moral argument to make about bringing the troops home and no more endless wars. And that's fine to make those arguments, but I want to hear a little bit more depth to those arguments. And I would push back against this because they're just slogans. And I would really say, like, do not think that you're making an argument from a moral standpoint just by advocating for me to come home. Understand that these troops are not victims. We're not these poor old, uh, farmer fucking farmer boys, just don't know what they're doing. That's just it's not who we are. We know what we're doing. We know the mission, and we understand why we're doing it. And don't use us as an excuse. That always frustrated me. That always frustrates me in that debate. Um, and so I just miss it quite a bit. I'll say that. What do I miss the least? I honestly don't know. I just have such high praise for my time in the military. I honestly don't know. It would be something silly.
Right.
The parking sucked. The parking was terrible. So
The parking.
yeah, but it's also terrible everywhere. So I don't know.
Man, try living in LA. Why is Congress? Oh, this is really good actually. This is Sean in Minnesota. Why is Congress not in session right now during the crisis? And do you think that it should be?
Yeah, yeah. Um, we're looking. I know there are bipartisan talks on how to do that. They're talking about proxy voting. So that'd be an interesting thing. So somebody like me, who's really at no risk from coronavirus, um, I could go, right? I could go, and maybe some of my older colleagues could tell me what they wanted to vote, and I would cast their vote for them. I suppose that's maybe how they're thinking of working that. That just obviously requires laws to be changed. I That's about all I know so far about that conversation. Generally speaking, yes. I mean, I totally agree with you. I think we should be debating refunding that PPP program right now. I mean,
Yeah.
100%. I did not. There was a lot of people mad at Tom Massey for kind of getting in the way of that last rescue package. Now, I think he's totally wrong for being against the rescue package, but I never had a problem with this notion that we should just vote. Now, I felt like I did vote that day because I got on the floor, I spoke. And I was there, right? And I said yes, it was a voice vote, but just wasn't recorded. So there was a quorum. It did get voted on technically. People should know that. It just wasn't the recorded vote one by one, with the card that we put in. But I had no problem with his desire to make us vote. Like let's just vote. Let's see
Yeah.
if he wants to vote no. Let's see if AOC wants to vote no, because she had a lot of problems with it.
Did
I don't
you
know.
think it was going to run out of money as quickly as it did? Because it was barely a week, right?
Yeah, we knew it would. That's why we've been saying this for a week. Hey, we got to refund this. The Treasury's telling us. Yeah, we did know. This was not a surprise. That's why we've been asking to refund it. And the Democrats are not held accountable for this. This is unbelievable hostage taking. They're not held accountable for their actions. The media doesn't talk about it.
Well, that'll bring me to a media question that I had here. I was going to hold it for a little bit, but that's a good segue. Let's see where to go. Here we go. This is Chris in Illinois as well. Can you see a solution to the problem of today's modern news media devolving into nothing but propaganda machines for their respective political parties? How can we get back to unbiased reporting and trust in media? That is a segue right there.
How do we get back to it? Okay. I forgot. My publisher told me I'm supposed to actually sign books in front of you guys.
Yeah,
Although it's really
you're supposed to
hard.
be signing while you're doing this.
Yeah,
Do a little sign
yeah.
there.
so that you know, like, I really am
You
signing
are
books.
actually
And
signing things.
yeah, and there is like a small chance if you buy books during this time that you actually do get one that is quite literally signed, because I have like a few of them here. Okay,
Right.
so
You want
just
you want to
worth
show
noting.
you want to show the people the book plate, a signed book plate, so they know what it is.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. You know, you
Yeah,
gotta.
let's get them a book plate,
People
and
don't
then
like to be surprised.
yeah, and as I'm talking to you, I'll babble on a little bit, and you can just sign a whole bunch of them so they know that you're actually signing it right now.
So basically, I have this sheet, right? And
Yep.
these are all different book plates. I sign literally thousands of these things, like I'm going to do right now. I promise you, like, this is my signature. If it looks kind of like that, it's me. I
And
promise you.
it's you.
Nobody's working through these but me. It's why my wrist hurts so much. I
What do you
actually don't
make
know
a
why my wrist.
what do you make a Trump signature? I mean, that is work to sign things that way.
It's intense. It is an intense signature. I don't understand it. I can't read Donald Trump from that, but
Yeah.
it's unique. You know, I think you can basically read DC from mine. I think it's pretty obvious. But
Yeah.
yeah, these are basically stickers that, you'll get this in the mail, and then you'll take it off. You put it where you want it on your book. Um, that's how that works. Okay, so the question about media.
Yeah.
How do we get to a place? I mean, this is it's almost an impossible question, but something everybody's always wondering. Um, the best way is for us as viewers to hold them accountable, by not watching the wrong ones, and not giving them what they're seeking. The media, and I write about this in my book not quite a bit, but a good amount. Just I reference other books that have really delved into this. And the media is quite literally choosing words and headlines to make you outraged. So if the goal is to get away from outrage culture, it really is up to every individual American. Like, this book is written for every individual American to be part of the solution and not the problem. And because the media operate off of incentives, and so those are financial incentives, those are clicks, and they have it down to a science. And it is up to us to be mentally resilient enough and tough enough to say, I'm not going to react to it. I'm not going to react the way you want me to. I'm going to question this. I'm going to say, maybe President Trump doesn't actually have blood on his hands. Like, maybe there's a chance that any administration dealing with a pandemic would have been dealing with it exactly the way we've been dealing with it. Maybe there wasn't, like, it turns out that President Trump doesn't get this form on his desk. And if he checks one box, he gets all the PPE he wants. And if he checks the other box, we just don't have enough PPP or PPE. And he checked the other box, right? Like, you would think that's how it works when you
Right.
listen to the criticisms. Like, guys, it's all to all of us to take a step back. And I had this conversation with Dana Perino because I wanted to get her take, and she was kind of defensive of the media, not because she's like a part of it. I think she was just being objective, honestly, and giving me some context. She's like, really, if you start to expand what you're watching to a little bit more, non-cable news networks, you really do start to get a less of a political feel and a little
Mhm.
bit more of a newsy feel. And maybe we just have to support those networks a little bit more for what they're doing.
There you go. This is an important one. Nancy Pelosi has a ton of ice cream in her $25,000 fridge. What is in your freezer?
It would be Bluebell. I'm out of Bluebell ice cream. I don't know if she had any Bluebell ice cream, but she probably had some fancy,
No, she had very ultra fancy stuff. Come on.
it's like, I don't know
She
how
had
you
like
can get more
elitist
fancy
ice
than
cream.
Yeah, Bluebell is clearly the best, and she doesn't know. I mean, obvious, but that's the lighthearted critique. The obvious problem there, though, is this sort of Marie Antoinette moment, like the let them eat ice cream moment, while people are suffering. Like, I don't even understand the point of the ice cream. I don't even understand how that was funny. Like, is it relatable? It's not relatable, Nancy. We don't have refrigerators like that. I'm a member of Congress just like she is. I don't have the things that she has. Like,
You don't have two stainless steel $25,000 freezers right next to each other, which are probably only two of
nope,
many that you have
nope,
in your $16 million house. Are you kidding?
no. I've not.
Man.
I don't even own my refrigerator. It's an apartment. We rent it. Like, it's ridiculous.
All right, let's see. Oh, this is a good one. What do you think is the greatest challenge for Iraq or Afghanistan war veterans today?
Oh, that is a really good one. What's the biggest challenge? Biggest challenge. I mean, I think just general transition and stigma. A lot would say that, you know, there's the suicide rate is high, and it is. But as I break apart those numbers, what I find is it's actually mostly Vietnam veterans who are part of that suicide rate. That's concerning for a whole slew of reasons, and we've got to figure that out. It's not easy. It's easy to say I want to fund this more. I want to fund the VA more. But I mean, we've almost, I think, quintupled the VA funding. Don't quote me on that, but it's a huge amount of funding increases for the VA. So throwing money at these problems, you know, it's definitely part of it. We want to make sure it's funded correctly, but that's not all of it. There is a lack of purpose that occurs for a lot of veterans. And so for post 9/11 veterans who have gotten out more recently, and I went through this, I went through it in late 2016. It's like, okay, what am I doing now? Because remember, you asked me what I missed and didn't miss about the military. Well, obviously I missed a lot, and there's not much I didn't miss. So figuring out what I want to do, yeah, was difficult. Like I'm a person who's really driven by purpose. I talk about this in my book too, about no, it's a chapter called No Plan B, and fundamentally what that chapter is about is not quitting. But it's more than just not quitting. It's living a plan A. And by living a plan A, I mean living with a sense of purpose, a purpose that you fully embrace and understand, and even in the small ways you live up to. And for veterans, I say you still have a purpose and a mission. It's just not what it was before, but it is up to you to find it. And you know, you're a soldier or an airman or a sailor, and it is up to you to live with that sense of duty and find that mission, because people are relying on you in some way. You may not think so, but they are. America's relying on everybody to be a good citizen and to be a productive citizen. And you have to live that way. You just do. That's why God is allowing you to be alive when some of your fellow veterans are not. And that's the hard truth. And that's a deep, hard thing that I think we need to
Hmm.
be telling ourselves, not just as veterans, but as American citizens.
All right, you want the ego stroked? Are you ready for an ego
Yeah.
one?
Yeah.
All
Let's
right,
get it.
here we go. This is Benjamin in New York. Has anyone ever compared you to the character Maximus, famously played by Russell Crowe in the movie Gladiator?
Yeah. Yeah. The short answer, yes.
Yeah. All right, ego stroked, answer stroked. I have a feeling I might know the answer to this one because you might have done it already. You might have even said it already. This is Brett in Huntington Beach, California. He wants to know your favorite quote.
Oh, my favorite one? I'm going to just give you a really good one from the book because I reference it quite a few times. I'm not going to get it exactly right because I don't have it. I'm not going to look for it either. It's by St. John Paul II, and he's talking to, or Pope John Paul II. If you're not Catholic and you don't want to call him a saint, um, he's speaking to a large crowd at Camden Yards in Baltimore, and he said, you know, freedom in America is not the right to do what we like, but the right to do what we ought. And that gets right to my conversation about living with purpose
Mm-hmm.
and living with a sense of morality that is derived from somewhere other than just your opinion. And you know, and this is the fundamental debate between atheism and I think more religious minded folks is like, where does morality come from and how do we live according to that, and why is it true? Why is it true? That's such an important question. You know, you toured with Jordan Peterson forever, so like he really dives right into that as well.
Yeah.
And I love that quote because it talks to us about citizenship, the responsibility as a citizen, what you ought to do for your country, not waiting for your country to do something for you. Yes, your rights are guaranteed, but there is an exchange that happens there. You must live as a moral citizen, and this is our founders talked about this. Washington talked about this. I often quote John Adams. I'm pretty sure he's quoted in my book too at some point, just to make the case that the Constitution was made for a moral and religious people. It's wholly inadequate for anyone else. That's so fundamentally true, and so that's why it's one of my favorite quotes, because it really drives a very important conservative philosophical principle.
Yeah. Are you always amazed how the foresight that the founders had then, because they were separating church and state,
Yeah.
while at the same time they were talking about God-given rights, things that the
Right.
state did not give you, that the state's protecting. I mean, it's a pretty amazing thing that they decided to do. They were leaving a king, and while they were saying, hey, these rights come from something besides us, at the same time, government's not going to force you to be a believer or anything like that.
No, it's amazing. It's the longest running political document in the world. Okay, and by that I mean obviously other countries have existed longer than us. Everybody knows that, but their constitutions have not. And ours is so unique. It has so much foresight in it. It's just incredible. I mean, these people were true students of history. In so many ways. They studied confederacies, like, okay, should we be a kind of a confederate, like with states, or should we be a pure democracy, just 51% just votes? I mean, should we do that? And they're like, no, don't do that, because then you get this. And so, I mean, they really, they looked at the Republic. I mean, they took all the best ideas from Jerusalem, where we get moral truth, from Athens, where we understood reason and how to explore our environment with science within that reason. They got the ideas from the Republic and the judiciary from Rome, and then from London. We actually, despite the fact that we were fighting against a tyrannical king, the notion of the Bill of Rights and natural rights, it does come from English thought and the Magna Carta. This notion that even kings are subject to law, and so like the founders were just able to take all of these great ideas and figure them out in the Constitution, and really expose why government exists. So the best way to think about this, if you're trying to explain the founding documents, is the Declaration of Independence tells us why government exists. The Constitution tells us how to govern. No other country has that, and these are so important, and they're both deeply entrenched in our laws.
Speaking my language. This is Nicholas in Chicago. I think you're going to like this one. If you could suspend one law nationwide for one day, what would you choose?
I haven't thought about that. That's a good one.
That's why this is on the fly, man.
Suspend one law for the day.
We could do a purge type situation. I don't know how you feel about that. That might be a bit excessive,
Let's see. What is it? What do I always want to? Let me just think of something kind of silly that I always just really want to do, but I know I'm not allowed to. God, I don't know. Can we come back? It's such a good question, and I feel like I'm totally failing.
All right. All right. We're coming back to that one. We're coming back to that. Don't worry about it, Nicholas. We're going to get it to you. Don't forget to sign.
Let me just answer it. Let me sorry. It's hard with the way this is set up.
That'll buy you some time if you just start scribbling your name down.
Yeah, if I just start, so I'm signing things. You know what we did? What we did do in Texas as soon as the pandemic hit was we made it legal to deliver alcohol. So I don't know why we would ever make that back to illegal.
Right.
I should just stay. In a serious way to answer that question is telehealth. Telehealth is now taken off. Like one of the immediate things that we did was unrestrict a lot of telehealth capability and allowing doctors to practice across state lines via telehealth. This is things that Republicans have long wanted to do. And now all of a sudden it's just like, hey, it's happening. And now hospitals are like, this is amazing. Like, this is the right way to do healthcare. We save so much money. It's so efficient. It's like, yeah, duh. We knew this all along. Let's keep it this way. I mean, there's some things that might stick around after this in a deregulatory way that I think is phenomenal. Again, so I'm trying to think of like a funny answer to that, but another serious
that kind of works
one,
though. I mean, that one works.
Well, I would also say in like direct primary care. I have lots of bills that I want to be law right now, but they ask what I want not to be law, and so it's such a good. Let's come back to it. I'm going to think of
you kind of did answer it. Keep bouncing it around. All right, you sign a couple of book plates. This is a good one. This is Robert in New York. He says, I plan on running for office soon. When I tell people, sometimes they laugh. I know it's because they're simple-minded. I want to ask, did people laugh at your dreams? And did you know that's the goal to pursue? I guess being a politician, being a congressman.
Yeah. The first piece of advice is don't call people simple-minded when they laugh at your problem. It's not a good way to get them to vote for you.
Yeah.
listen, I don't know the situation, but I don't think anybody laughed, but I definitely didn't get like serious support at all. Because it's so hard to get elected, and if you don't have some kind of financial backing to at least get you started, it really is a pointless endeavor. I am
Mhm.
the exception. I am not the rule. I was outspent 30-1 by just one opponent out of nine in a 3-month election. I mean, there's a lot of things I did, and a lot of ways that I want, ran this campaign to win. And so it's extremely difficult. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try. I didn't always know I wanted to be a politician. No, definitely not. I mean, I was about to take a job at Department of Defense after I did my master's, after I got out of the military. And then the next day I was like, we're running for Congress. It was that quick. My
Huh.
hometown congressman announced retirement. We had not even thought about it. And then somebody was like, you should really go do that. Think about this. And I was like, well, the election's in March. It's November now. Um, why not? Really, why not? So what's the worst case? Like you lose 3 months out of your life. Um, let's do this. And so, yeah, that's what happened.
Pretty sweet. All right, keep signing over there. This is Renee in Hawaii. Where do you see yourself 10 years from now? Probably
It's true.
signing book plates.
It's true. Maybe another book's coming out. But Fortitude 2, Coronavirus Edition.
Yeah.
Like no, I have no idea. Okay, I'll stay in politics as long as people want me in politics. And as far as do I stay in the House? Do we move to another seat? Like I don't know. That's you have to kind of see what happens with each election cycle. It's not like another career where you can sort of map out your trajectory. And I think if you are mapping out a trajectory in politics, you're doing it wrong. I really believe that my goal is always to set myself up for success, whatever that next move will be. So I'm just
Hmm.
going to do the best job in this job, and that's it. And if I do that, then I will be well set up for whatever I want to do. That's how I look at it.
Fair enough. All right. Keep signing book plates. Let me see it. Let me see a sheet of book plates signed. You know what I mean? While
I've gotten
I'm
through one.
You
I've
got
gotten
through.
through
You got
one.
through one. There you go. Let's keep them
Yeah.
going. There we go. All right, people.
Okay.
He's signing them live. Um, this is interesting from
I'll even
Roger in
sign a book.
Virginia. From Roger in Virginia. How do we get more veterans into Congress?
Well, they have to run, and then you get elected. It's now you're rocking science.
Easy
A
enough.
lot of yeah, I would say my advice to a lot of veterans is two things. One, you're probably more prepared than you think you are. I definitely thought that because I did think in the back of my mind, to answer that other question, in the back of my mind, me and my wife had both talked about politics and running, but it was like 10 years down the road. Because I was like, I need to be a total expert on literally everything. It's a very military mindset. And then I started running, and I was like, oh, I'm prepared. I mean, compared to what I in these debates, like I'm well more prepared than I thought I was. And then you get to Washington, and you're like, wow, the whole thing. And so you do need to be prepared. You need to listen to a lot of political podcasts, and you need to understand the arguments, and you need to have a pretty good understanding, but you don't have to be a total expert. You need to know why you're running, and it can't be, well, I'm a veteran and this is how I served and now I want to serve this way. No, that's not a compelling argument. You need to have issues that you care about, that you want to tell people about, and there's got to be a deeper message that you can tell people that they're not convinced just because you're a veteran. And it's a good thing to get your foot in the door. It doesn't keep your foot in the door. And you gotta know your stuff, and they've got to feel, your voters have to feel like you really are going to be a fighter for what they believe in.
Can't say much more than that. This is Rachel in South Carolina. Hey Dan, thanks for so much. Thanks so much for all you do and represent. You're someone I've learned so much from and who inspires me to do what is hard. At the end of the day, who inspires you and who has been a role model for you?
Well, so many. One chapter in my book is called "Who is Your Hero?" And I don't identify any specific hero that was my hero. This is who I want to be. I don't find that useful because there's different attributes that we derive from different heroes. And you know, a big one for me, of course, is my mother, and I talk about her quite a bit in the book, in the chapter about perspective from darkness, where you know I'm blind, I'm suffering, but I also have to remind myself that a 35-year-old woman, a couple decades before, suffered much greater through cancer, while also trying to take care of her two kids, and she had death on her doorstep, which eventually got her. Um, I, I have nothing to complain about if I think about that situation. You can always say that somebody else has it worse. That's just objectively true. Um, and so that's kind of a tough love thing, but it's just true, and it actually that has a soothing effect. If somebody else has gotten through this, why can't I? So my mother's a huge hero, but the way you identify heroes, I go really deep into this, is through hero archetypes. You know, identify your kind of vision statement of who you want to be. I want to be this person because they're good at this, so I want to do this thing like them. Okay, and it's important to focus on attributes and not the entire person.
Hmm.
For in politics, I think there's some good reason why, right? Like, why do we care what celebrities say about politics? Why? Why do I care? Why does Taylor Swift's opinion matter? It shouldn't. She's never, in the way I put this in the book, she's never risen along the hierarchy of success in politics or policy or anything like that. So why would we listen to her? What she's really good at is being a pop music star. If she has advice on how to do that, we should probably listen. She probably knows what she's talking about.
Right.
And I just encourage people to pay attention to that. You know, if I'm trying to give you sewing advice, you probably shouldn't listen to me. I don't
Probably
know
not
what I'm
great.
talking about. Well, I don't know. I might be good at it. I think
Yeah. Oh,
that's not the
now we're
point.
learning something.
I don't know. Maybe I might be good at painting too. I haven't gotten. Let's not get into
Yeah,
it.
that could be a whole different live stream. Um, let's see. If you were to be elected president of the United States, this is Cody in Illinois, a lot of Illinois people for you. What would be the most important action you would take within the first 100 days? I like that he gave you a 100-day window there, because what all the nominees do, or what all the candidates do, is always on the first day, I'm going to do all of this. Nobody ever does
Right.
anything on the first day. You dance with your wife. That's it.
That's a good question. I mean, I'm not running for president. It's not something I put a ton of thought into. So I'll just kind of tell you my general legislative priorities. I think, um, as far as Republicans go, we have to be having an answer to the environment question and the healthcare question. We can't let these go. And for too long we haven't, mostly because there's not been consensus on our side. I think we've successfully built a lot of consensus recently. I want direct primary care to be the new thing in America. I want everybody to get access to primary care. I have a free market way to do that. That's what I'm going to focus on. I could go into a lot of detail on that, but that's a deep dive.
Yeah.
I want us to have an America First energy plan that is also environmentally sound and reduces worldwide carbon emissions. We can do that. And it's science based and it's engineering based. I have legislation that does just that puts investments in carbon capture technology. So those are a couple of things. Border security, I'm an absolutist on. So you know, I agree with the administration on that. They've actually made a huge amount of progress. People don't realize. Um, and you know, one of the on a practical level, what you always should do as soon as you get into office is make sure all of your political appointment positions are filled. like just clean house and like get those filled. You know, the ones that don't require Senate approval. That's really important, I think, and Trump has learned that over time. You know, it's just been it's like he's been just pushing this giant boulder up a hill at times because of his own administration. And so those are just off the top of my head. I could keep going forever.
That's going to be a
Probably on
busy
like
100 days. All right.
yeah.
So I think we have about 10 or 15 minutes left, and I want to get to as many of these as possible. So we'll try to do a little
Okay, I'll do
rapid
quicker.
fire.
I'm gonna go
We'll,
quicker. Yep.
we're going to pretend you're on CNN, where you really have to can the answer. You know what I mean? Let's see what we can do here. So you keep signing. This is Scott in
One
South
more page.
Dakota. What type of hunting do you enjoy most?
Hog hunting, bird hunting. I just want to be challenged with hunting. I don't hunt that often, unless it's hunting terrorists. That was my old life.
That's an answer.
So
That's an answer.
yeah, terrorist hunting. There you go.
This is Robert in Virginia. I think you've sort of answered this throughout, but is there one underlying principle that you use to help you look at the issue to make sense of them?
Yes, there's a few, but let me just give you a few. One, if you're trying to give somebody something, is it infringing on the rights of others? What is the purpose of this law? Is the purpose of this law to institute justice? Okay, there's a difference between instituting justice, meaning is this preventing person A from infringing on the rights of person B? That should be our definition of what justice looks like. Or is this just trying to redistribute something to give somebody else a service? We better ask that fundamental question. And we better have a really good reason for wanting to redistribute that thing and provide somebody else a service. I'm not saying we don't do it, but we should at least question that to a huge extent. Is this adding to our fiscal insolvency? Is this removing freedom, or is this giving people more freedom? And why are we removing freedom? Okay, sometimes we should, like, we don't want people speeding down the highway, so we removed some element of freedom there. But why are we doing it? Because speeding down that highway has the potential to infringe on someone else's rights. See how that happens. Conservatives don't always get this right, especially our activists. Sometimes we're not, we just get really mad if there's a law at all. But you have to frame that within certain principles. Another really simple question to ask is this law do good or feel good? Does it do good or feel good? Have we really thought through the second and third order consequences of this law? Democrats almost never do.
Yes, I'm in agreement. I love this question. This is Patrick in Minnesota. He says, do you still have self-doubt ideologically, and how do you deal with it? So for a guy who knows his ideas inside and out, and it's everything that you laid out in this book, do you still have some doubt about some of those ideas?
We should. I'm open to certain debates. One I'm fascinated by is how conservatives view, I think, a more general strategic economic policy. And this is sort of a fight between the libertarian side of the aisle and the kind of what some would call like industrial policy, which is more the Trumpian side of the aisle. And where we actually tinker a little bit more in industry and say, like, this is an American manufacturing, and we're just going to make sure it's still American manufacturing. That's very anti-libertarian. A libertarian says, hey, if Saudi Arabia can make $2 a barrel oil, then let's just get all our oil from them. That's comparative advantage. Let's just do that. That's what economics teaches you, duh. But there's cost to that, right? Like, now we don't have an energy industry. Now we're completely beholden to what happens in the Middle East. Like, there's consequences to that. You can't just ignore those consequences. And so we have to wrap our conservative. This is why I'm not a libertarian. So I pretty much do know what I think, and pretty hard, and I can defend it, right? And what I talk about in my book a lot is it's okay not to know things. You should have no shame for not knowing something. You should feel a lot of shame if you know something with a great deal of, or if you have a really strong opinion, but you're not sure why. That's what you should feel shame for. I'm not saying you have to change your mind and agree with me just because I have a whole bunch of reasons why I think the way I think. I'm just saying you better have a really good reason to disagree with me. And I want to hear it. And I'm not saying you have to change your mind. I'm not saying you're wrong just by disagreeing with me, but at least know why you feel so strongly about something. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah. All right. This is going to be a tough one to do quick. This is Tony in Portland, Oregon. Do you think that our relationship with China has reconstructed our economy in ways that have been partially responsible for the low morale our country has been experiencing? So I don't know if you totally agree with the premise, but in general, the relationship with China and sort of where we're at, how are you going to do this one fast? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, I would just say yes. 100%. And that is going to be front and center over the next 6 months of debate. I hope Democrats will have that conversation with us. The problem is, I think behind closed doors they certainly agree with it, but they don't want to shift any blame to China because that takes away blame from Trump. So there's complete political opportunism there. when in reality, we need to get those, we need to talk about supply chains, where these things are manufactured. We need to dust off some other policy measures that maybe we weren't hitting as hard before, regarding intellectual property theft, regarding worldwide investment, using American investment abroad for our own interests instead of letting China just keep doing it. Using our financial system instead of China's. I mean, we have to act like the superpower. So yes, and we need to do better to confront it.
This is Scott in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. The country's always been divided. No matter the issue, Americans will fight for what they believe. That's what makes us so great as a country. But do you see a way back to where we can respect each other again? That's sort of a theme in everything you're talking about here.
Yeah, it's certainly a theme. When I talk about outrage culture in my book, it's about a font of outrage culture is this desire to attack character instead of the idea, and I am not shy. I fight a lot of battles, more than most, and but I attack ideas. I don't think that I attack people, and I distinguish. I know I draw a hard line between those two things. But that's exactly right. And the other problem in politics is the need to defame character as a way to win a policy battle. I think objectively speaking, this happens far more on the left than it does on the right. I think that is purely objectively speaking. It's not like we don't fight, but and maybe and fight in the wrong way sometimes. I'm not saying we're conservatives are perfect or activists are perfect, but we also just know that we can't get away with the same things the left can get away with. I mean, it's amazing what they get away with, and so we just don't fight that way. But it's got to stop. It's nonsense. There's plenty to disagree on substantive terms. Let's just actually debate those things.
Sounds good. All right, sign a couple more. I see you're making moves over there.
I'm doing
Sean in Loretto, Minnesota. What book have you reread or gifted most recently?
Well, the one I read most recently, and I highly recommend it, is Don't Burn This Book by Dave Rubin.
Oh, man.
I'm just kidding. You haven't sent me a copy yet.
Did they still not send you the freaking copy? All right. We got to talk to our guys.
I did get a notice that we have something in the mail today. Maybe it's that.
Right,
Russell Kirk, The American Cause. Russell Kirk is a great American author. He really distills what it means to be a conservative and how to explain these principles in very simple terms. This book is like it's like 150 pages or something. I get a lot of my philosophical thought from writers like him.
This is Thomas in Santa Cruz, right here in the People's Republic of California. How do we increase the focus, determination, loyalty, and fortitude in our youth? You reference JP, Jordan Peterson, and Jocko Willink often. I guess it has something to do with some of the stuff they've been putting out there, right?
100%. I mean, the way to increase fortitude amongst our youth is for you to buy the book and give it to a young person that you might know. Maybe they're graduating high school or college. We actually wrote this as more of a graduation gift, and that was also the thinking behind the timing for it as well. And then the pandemic hit, and it was maybe the worst timing in the world to come out with a book. But here we are.
I know the feeling.
That's exactly what this book is for. It's written for a younger audience. That's not true. It's easily acceptable to a younger audience. I think it's fun and readable to somebody in high school or middle school even. Read every lesson in there. But I don't know, I could go through each one, but let's rapid fire more questions.
All right, a couple more. This is Stephen, also in California. I like that there's some sane people in California. That's inspiring.
Yeah, a lot of California, yeah.
What do you think the biggest challenge law enforcement will face in the next several years, and what can the government do to support local law enforcement agencies? I think people are finally waking up to this now because of Corona, that some stuff should be done locally.
Yeah, and I wonder what they mean by that question. I think they might mean, like, you're looking at a situation in Michigan where sheriffs are like, I'm not enforcing this law. You can't ask me to do this. You've seen that, I believe, in Colorado with gun laws, Virginia with potential gun laws. The sheriffs will just be like, I'm not enforcing this. A law has to be respectable for it to be respected. That is an extremely important virtue. If you're looking for other books to read, a book written in 1850 by Frédéric Bastiat. He's a French philosopher. It's called The Law. Really easy to remember. The Law. It's like 100 pages. Excellent. I mean, just excellent things to be read in there. And so that's the challenge I see law enforcement facing. I'm not sure if that's what he meant by that question, but it's an important one.
Paul in Kentucky, do you train any martial arts presently?
No, I really would like to. I've long meant to. I just don't have time. I box like with a bag a lot just to keep up some kind of skill set. But in the SEAL teams, we don't train in any specific kind of martial arts. It's not like we're all Steven Seagal, with the Aikido thing. Like, well, here we go.
Right.
There's not a lot of purpose to that because just in the midst of combat, that is not fully useful to the extent that we would really have to spend a lot of time training, because it takes a lot of time to learn that, and we need to learn a million things. So hand-to-hand combat, like the really specialized hand-to-hand combat, is not really taught. You're taught to be extremely aggressive and hurt somebody as badly as possible in the quickest amount of time possible, and that's not that complicated. You hit them in the face or groin. It's really that simple. And you make sure that you're able to kind of get out of some bad situations. So there's more advanced techniques that in classes that I've been fortunate enough to go to, which are really cool, about how to take somebody's gun out of their hands, and you'll be very surprised what you're capable of once you practice it, even when somebody else is armed and you're not. So.
All right, here we go. No. Last couple. This is Pliny in Massachusetts. What do you believe is the greatest threat to our freedom?
Our desire to give it away.
Ooh, that's good. That's good.
Whether through entitlement programs or endless spending, or this notion that we're always relying on somebody else to keep us safe, and relying on somebody else to give us something that somebody else told us we were owed. And so do not be tricked by false promises.
All right, here we go. These are the last two. I feel like these are the right way to go out here. Show me another sheet that you've got signed. There we go.
I did it.
All right.
I know. You're like my teacher. Did you do it? Did you?
Look at you talking and writing at the same time. It's truly incredible. This is Aaron in Kentucky. What's your biggest weakness?
Still trying to find one.
Oh, there you go.
I'm just kidding.
You care
humility,
too much.
Humility. We talked about this, right? Millennials, our sense of humility isn't what it could be. I'll probably, but honestly speaking, probably just patience. I'm very good publicly. You're not going to get me to, in an interview or whatever it is. And I talk about how to what my sort of be still mentality is in public life, but that doesn't mean I'm perfect. Like I am not, I'm just not that person, right? Like I screw up. I raise my voice when I shouldn't, to people I care about, and just like we all do. And I could be more patient and understanding and more empathetic and compassionate sometimes. And that's things I got to work on. I mean, I'm a SEAL, and that is kind of my primary driver. But I recognize that I could do better in the softer areas, for sure.
Do you ever, this is one more for me and then we'll get to the last one. Do you ever wish that you were sort of as over the top or theatrical? Like when you see AOC and the hands are swinging and she's screaming and going into her fake accent and all of that stuff. And I know you disagree with the ideas, but do you ever go, if I just had a little more of that?
No, because what I do appears to be working for me. No, I find that to be a clown show. And it's nope.
Fair enough.
You got to be yourself. You got to be yourself. Otherwise, if you're in politics and you're trying to figure out okay, should I act like that? Should I act like that? You will fail 100%. Because criticize her all you want. She is authentic. That is her. I believe that. I don't think she's faking it. You can't fake that. It's just, Bernie Sanders, that's him. Kamala Harris, that's not her. That's fake. Elizabeth Warren, that's fake. It's not real. That's why they didn't win. Joe Biden, that's real. He can't talk. That's real.
Yeah. It's funny. I always say about Trump, it's somehow this guy with that hair and the orange skin and all of it, he's more authentic than any of them. It's actually incredible if you really think about it. It's who's more authentic, Elizabeth Warren or Donald Trump? It's like, obviously
Yeah.
Donald Trump. All right, this is the last one. I think this sums it all up and it'll bring us home. This is Bill in Connecticut. What makes you most proud about the United States?
Oh man. We are the only country that protects people's natural rights. We are truly the only one. We are the only country that still believes that we control our own destiny. I mean, and this is objectively true. Like there's polling that shows if you're asked a question and you ask a German and an American, is your destiny, I can't remember how it's phrased, but like, is your outcome only affected by outside forces? And like, a good majority of Germans say yes, but definitely a minority of Americans say yes. That's so important. That's the American spirit, and I don't want to lose that. It's why I wrote this book. That's why personal responsibility and owning your own destiny and telling yourself the right story about America is so important. That's why those themes are so deeply entrenched in this book. That's why I wrapped the book up with a chapter called The Story of America, and where I really talk about this and why we should be proud of America, everything we've accomplished, everything we're founded on, and that informs our future in a huge way.
That's how you bring it home. The book is Fortitude. I'm going to guess you're going to be willing to sign a couple extra book plates in case people didn't get questions answered, or even if they sign up a little late. You'll be willing to do that.
I'm pretty sure if you just buy it like during this time, then you just get a signed book plate.
I guess we should have said that. Did we fully say that at the beginning? Anyone who bought a book during this.
I think it was clear. Yeah, I think that was clear.
Yeah. Well, as always, man, good seeing you. Good luck with the book. We'll post our interview soon, and stay safe and stay sane, man. We need you. I don't say that to a lot of guests. You're like the one guy we need right now. So keep up the good work.
I appreciate it. Thanks for doing this. Thank you, everybody, for your purchases, and we will get those book plates out to you. Thank you, Dave, and can't wait to read your book and be promoting that with you.
All right, I got to crack some skulls if they didn't send it to you already. So we'll see what happens. All right, thanks a lot, Congressman.
All right, see ya.